Complaints appear to be resolved faster, response times shrink, and visible dispute queues look controlled. The system presents itself as more efficient, with fewer unresolved cases at the surface. The common explanation is operational improvement. Better tools, faster triage, and more responsive handling seem to account for the change. It appears that the platform has simply become better at resolving disputes, but the volume of incoming complaints has not decreased. In some cases, it has increased while resolution metrics continue to improve. The visible improvement begins to separate from the underlying flow of disputes. If resolution were genuinely improving, backlog pressure would decline. Instead, pressure accumulates outside the visible system. The system shows fewer problems while handling more input, creating a mismatch. The discrepancy reveals that not all complaints are being processed equally. Some are resolved quickly, while others are delayed or diverted. The system begins to filter what counts as a resolved case. The rule that defines success is tied to visible resolution metrics. Cases that can be quickly closed improve performance signals. Cases that require extended handling become costly to keep visible. This creates an incentive to minimize exposure of complex complaints. Keeping them in active queues damages resolution performance. Removing them from visibility preserves the appearance of efficiency. Vendors adapt by offloading disputes into delayed administrative pathways. Instead of resolving issues, they shift them into processes that pause visibility. The complaint is no longer counted as active, but it is not resolved. This offloading becomes a rational response to protection incentives. Maintaining a low visible dispute rate secures operational stability. The focus shifts from resolution to managing what is seen. As more disputes are redirected, the visible queue becomes cleaner. Metrics improve because fewer difficult cases remain in scope. The system rewards the removal of friction rather than its resolution. The hidden queue begins to accumulate unresolved complaints. These cases persist outside performance measurements. The system carries unresolved load without reflecting it in visible indicators. A contrast emerges between signal and reality. The system signals improvement while underlying issues expand. What is measured no longer reflects what is happening. Administrative delay becomes a tool for managing exposure. Delaying a case removes it from immediate accountability. Time becomes a mechanism for controlling visibility rather than resolving problems. As this pattern repeats, vendors increasingly rely on delay pathways. Resolution effort shifts toward cases that can be quickly closed. Complex disputes are systematically pushed out of view. The platform reinforces this behavior by maintaining protection conditions. Vendors that keep visible complaint levels low retain operational advantages. Those who expose unresolved cases face higher risk. This creates a coordination effect across the system. All actors align toward minimizing visible disputes. The system converges on managing appearances rather than outcomes. A second contrast appears in how complaints are categorized. Resolved cases define performance, while delayed cases disappear from evaluation. The boundary between resolution and deferral becomes strategically important. Over time, the definition of resolved narrows to what can be quickly closed. Anything requiring extended effort is excluded from visible metrics. Resolution becomes a classification decision rather than a process outcome. The backlog continues to grow in hidden layers. Each delayed case adds to unresolved system pressure. The system stabilizes with an expanding invisible load. The equilibrium forms around protection through invisibility. Vendors maintain compliance by controlling exposure. The platform maintains performance signals by ignoring deferred problems. The system no longer optimizes for resolving disputes. It optimizes for keeping disputes out of sight. Visible improvement becomes detached from actual resolution. The result is a stable state where complaints appear controlled. But the underlying system carries an unresolved and growing backlog. As the hidden backlog grows, the time required to surface a delayed complaint increases. Each additional case extends the delay window needed to keep it outside visible metrics. The system begins to rely on longer delays to preserve the same appearance of control. This creates a time horizon mismatch between resolution and measurement. Visible performance is evaluated in short intervals, while unresolved cases accumulate over longer periods. Short-term signals improve precisely because long-term exposure is deferred. Vendors adapt by aligning their handling cadence to these measurement windows. Cases that can be closed quickly are prioritized within the evaluation period. Cases that cannot are systematically shifted beyond it, reinforcing delay as a standard response. As more actors follow this pattern, the hidden backlog becomes structurally persistent. New complaints enter the same deferral pathways instead of being resolved. The system no longer cycles backlog down, only redistributes it over time. Information asymmetry begins to widen between visible and actual system states. The platform observes only what remains in the active queue. The majority of unresolved load exists outside its immediate measurement scope. This asymmetry feeds back into evaluation mechanisms. Performance appears stable or improving, which reduces pressure to change handling processes. The system interprets hidden accumulation as non-existent, reinforcing the current behavior. A contrast emerges between operational effort and reported outcomes. Handling effort shifts toward managing visibility rather than resolving disputes. Effort increases while measured problem volume declines. As the backlog expands, delayed cases begin to interact indirectly. Older unresolved complaints remain pending, while new ones are deferred in the same structure. The system accumulates layers of unresolved obligations without triggering visible escalation. This layering effect increases the cost of bringing any single case back into visibility. Reintroducing a delayed complaint would worsen current metrics. The system becomes increasingly resistant to resolving older cases. Vendors respond by avoiding reactivation of deferred complaints altogether. Once a case is moved out of scope, returning it becomes strategically disadvantageous. Deferral transitions from a temporary measure to a terminal state. Scaling amplifies this pattern across the entire system. Each additional complaint processed through delay pathways increases total hidden load. Growth in activity leads to growth in unresolved backlog without affecting visible indicators. As scale increases, the ratio between visible and hidden cases shifts further. A smaller portion of disputes remains in measurable space. The system's reported state becomes progressively detached from its actual condition. The delay mechanism begins to standardize across interactions. Handling pathways converge toward minimizing visibility rather than maximizing resolution. Operational diversity collapses into a single dominant pattern of deferral. At this point, the system's behavior becomes self-reinforcing. Better visible metrics validate the use of delay strategies. Validation encourages further reliance on the same mechanism, and analytical tension appears around whether backlog exposure will eventually surface. If hidden cases remain indefinitely deferred, the system can sustain its current state. But if delayed complaints re-enter visibility, accumulated pressure could disrupt the equilibrium. Despite this uncertainty, current incentives do not reward early exposure. Bringing hidden backlog into view creates immediate metric penalties. The system continues to prioritize concealment over reconciliation. Over time, the cost of resolving the backlog increases with its size. Each unresolved case contributes to a growing burden that is never reduced. Resolution becomes progressively less feasible within the system's constraints. The equilibrium tightens around backlog invisibility as a form of protection. Vendors maintain stable performance by sustaining the separation between visible and hidden cases. The system stabilizes not by resolving disputes, but by managing where they appear. The system now rewards the ability to keep complaints out of measurable space. Cases that can be delayed or diverted preserve performance signals, while fully surfaced disputes carry immediate cost. What was once treated as unresolved work is now treated as a visibility problem. Resolution no longer determines success. Remaining within acceptable metrics does. Complaints that stay visible are penalized through degraded performance indicators. Complaints that disappear into delay pathways no longer influence evaluation regardless of their actual status. Over time, the range of viable actions narrows to managing exposure rather than addressing issues. Actors operate within a system where keeping problems unseen becomes the dominant rational strategy. The equilibrium stabilizes around controlled invisibility. Behavior aligns not with resolving disputes, but with maintaining the conditions that prevent them from being seen.